And the war has rippled across the Middle East, with Iranian-backed groups attacking Israeli and U.S. targets. On Thursday, Houthi forces launched a new missile attack on an American-owned vessel in the Red Sea. That came after the U.S. had concluded a fifth strike against the rebels based in Yemen. Since mid-November, Houthis have disrupted major shipping lanes in the Red Sea by attacking dozens of commercial ships. Following the most recent U.S. strikes, Joe Biden was asked by reporters in Washington if the strikes on the Houthis were working. Here's what he had to say.
When you say working, are they stopping the Houthis? No. Are they going to continue? Yes.
Well, for more, let's speak to independent Yemen analyst Hannah Porter, joining us from London. Hello to you, Hannah. Just curious, Americans are in a difficult position, aren't they? Because the U.S. president wants to appear resolute, but at the same time, they're concerned about escalation. When you hear that soundbite from Joe Biden, is that the right message he should be sending?
Well, it's certainly not the right message, and I think it's indicative of a larger problem with U.S. foreign policy in Yemen. The problem for years, and this is really not recent, is that we don't have a cohesive approach to dealing with the Houthis. We don't have a long-term strategy. What we've been doing is we've been seeing actions from the Houthis, certainly recently, but even prior to this, that we in the international community find unacceptable. And our response to that is a knee-jerk reaction of conducting airstrikes or designating the Houthis terrorists, then undesignating them, then redesignating them again. And all of this is very counterproductive, and it doesn't speak to a long-term strategy. Unfortunately, there is no quick fix for this problem, but certainly the U.S. government would be well informed to plan better when it comes to the Houthis and really strategize to figure out how to deal with them, how to incentivize them, and how to react to these kinds of actions.
And beyond that, these U.S. strikes might even be playing into the Houthis' hands, because part of their whole message is about big bad America interfering in the region, right?
Yes, exactly. So when we see these airstrikes, there's a very good possibility that this is actually increasing Houthi popularity domestically, not only domestically in Yemen, actually, but regionally and now internationally. So the Houthis currently are receiving more attention and also more praise than they ever have in their history. And they're certainly enjoying that. And I think that they can now point to these direct strikes by the U.S. as indication or proof that their propaganda has been correct all along, that ultimately they are at war with the U.S.
And meanwhile, there are protests going on in Yemen's capital, Sana'a, in support of the Houthis. Just how popular are they in Yemen amid this country's decade-long civil war?
So it is difficult to measure this because, of course, conducting surveys, reliable surveys in territories held by the Houthis is not an easy thing to do. I think I can say confidently that a lot of the population living under Houthi rule simultaneously suffer from Houthi policies, but also are opposed not only to U.S. intervention in Yemen and also Saudi actions in Yemen, but also what they see happening in Gaza. Yemenis are overwhelmingly pro-Palestinian, so I do think that they are horrified by what Israel is doing in Gaza right now, so that likely helps them side with the Houthis somewhat, albeit on the domestic level, they're also suffering from Houthi leadership.
And how much to find de-escalation and stop the Red Sea attacks on commercial ships, how much does that have to go to appeasing the Houthis or towards appeasing Iran?
Well, it's hard to say exactly how much Iran is pulling the strings with the Houthis right now. There's no doubt about the relationship between them, and there's no doubt that Iran is also benefiting from the Houthi acts. But I do believe that the Houthis have their own goals and their own aims and their own interests, that even if Iran was potentially discouraging of these attacks, the Houthis may persist just because they've seen it as such a success for their public image and really playing into their hand. So I think that, these attacks will not last forever, but the long-term problem is that the Houthis will always know that they have this card in their back pocket, that anytime they want to be disruptive or prove their influence in the region, then they'll know that they have this power, that they can attack ships in the Red Sea.
Returning to U.S. foreign policy, when the U.S. has urged Israel to de-escalate in Gaza, when it has urged Netanyahu to consider a two-state solution. It seems to take the current situation with the future, what's to follow after the war, together and lump those together. In the Red Sea, it seems to be uncoupling the war in Gaza with the instability in Yemen. Is that your perspective as well?
That U.S. foreign policy is trying to uncouple that?
It's making a distinction between the instability in Yemen and the Houthi rebels and the war in Gaza.
Sure. So on the one hand, instability in Yemen is completely separate from the war in Gaza. It's just a litany of issues and problems that Yemen is facing right now that has nothing to do with Gaza. However, I do think that the Houthis are taking advantage of this opportunity and the current assault on Gaza to attack ships in the Red Sea, and they would be eager to say that if Israel does cease its assault on Gaza, that they would be the reason that occurred, so that these attacks on shipping were what prompted Israel to cease its assault. So I do expect if the war winds down in Gaza, that the Houthis will then at least temporarily cease these kinds of attacks. But like I said, in the future, I think we could expect to see them do this again.
All right, Hannah, thank you very much. Hannah Porter speaking to us from London. Thank you.